Boys, we're January 9th now, and it's interesting to me how much time and space is given to Abraham in this book of Genesis. Way back in Genesis chapter 12, he was called and given a promise, a covenant, land, nation, and blessing are things that he's promised, and that his eventually he's told in chapter 17 that his descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. But here we are still in Genesis 20 and 21, and God is still in the story with Abraham. And so often what we can tell, or how we can tell that something is important to the narrator, to the writer of Scripture, is how much time and space he gives to something. And so it's obviously an important story for Abraham here. But one of the things you notice, obviously, in the story is that there's a lot of bumbling and stumbling that goes on here in Abraham's life. It's decades worth of actual time, and you can think about that in your own life, I suppose. As you look back, you think, yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of times when I've just been doing the wrong thing or not doing it very well. Um, and I think that's what we see in Abraham's life too. And I like that the scripture is honest with us about Abraham's life, that he's not an ideal character who doesn't make any mistakes, that somebody who we couldn't be able to relate to, but he is somebody just like us who makes the same kind of mistakes. Although I don't know that we would ever make the same exact mistakes that Abraham makes, but even given a clear roadmap of what he's supposed to do with his life, not a lot of detail, obviously. Just go to a land that I will show you, and I'm going to give it to you. But waiting for that offspring, not knowing where it's going to come from, he starts to make his own plans and his own pathways to that fulfillment, and that ends up causing a lot of heartache and strife and complications for even up until our own day, for hundreds of years later. So thousands of years later, about 4,000 years later now. So all that to say, what a good thing that God still continues to work with Abraham to fulfill his promises, even though Abraham makes a lot of mistakes and sinful mistakes and does some really dumb things. God still is with him and still makes him a central part of the story so that you and I, reading thousands of years later, can see that God is faithful to his promises and that we as human beings are not. And so, um, and yet God doesn't give up on us, doesn't leave us alone, continues to pursue us. And so I think that's what we learn from the story of Abraham is God's consistent faithfulness in spite of all of the difficulties of real life, complicated real life. All right, that's it for today. Love you guys. Talk to you again tomorrow.